I beat my sister to an inch of her life for harassing my boyfriend. Trigger warning. This post talks about SA and our asterisk ape. I can finally talk about this because all the legal proceedings have been dealt with. So I've been dating my boyfriend Mark for about 5 years. He's the best thing that has ever happened to me. He's kind, smart, understanding, and absolutely beautiful. When we started dating, he was a bit closed off and was afraid to initiate any form of intimacy. I at first thought it was because I was his first relationship and maybe he was nervous. 6 months into us dating, he tells me that between the ages of 5 and 12 he was sexually assaulted and our asterisk ped by his mother. His father left when he was around 4. It fucked him up in the head for a while, and when it got out, his mother was arrested, and he and his 2 older sisters were put in the custody of their grandparents who they lived with ever since. He was placed in intensive therapy and still goes to this day. He's come a long way and has healed a lot, but he still has some days when he gets really depressed and cries. Part of his therapy was exercising. So about 2 years ago, he and I started doing some bodybuilding workouts. I toned up a lot, put 20 extra pounds of muscle on, and he toned up a bit. Because we've been dating for so long and have marriage in mind, he told my family, a less detailed version, and they welcomed him with love and support. Now for my sister Sally. I've suspected she's had a bit of a crush on him. She'll flirt sometimes here and there, but he never reciprocated and usually ignored her. I've talked to her about it so many times, but she didn't listen. To make a long story short, I had gone out one Saturday afternoon with some friends to get some drinks and left Mark behind because he didn't feel like going. My sister had texted me prior to ask if she could borrow a few things from me, a sweatshirt, DLSR camera, and a third thing that doesn't come to mind at the moment. I said sure, and to get it whenever. She went when I was out, unknowingly. When I came home, I found my boyfriend on the ground crying his eyes out and my sister trying to calm him down. He was having a panic attack. It's never safe to touch him when he has an episode because he may act out violently due to his headspace. Her hands were all over him, and he was trying to push her away. Her shirt was also on the ground, and she was only in her bra. I tore her away and asked what the fuck she was doing. She said that she was trying on the sweatshirt when he walked in on her, freaked out and went into an episode. However, Mark through his tears said she tried to touch him. I asked my sister if it was true, and she said no, but Mark again said she tried to touch him. We have cameras in the house, and I pointed it out to my sister. Her face went white, and I don't know what came over me, but I saw red. I can't remember much because I was so angry, but I beat the shit out of her. I can't even remember if I was the one who called 911, or her, though, her beat up state. I do remember kind of snapping out of it because Mark was still going through his episode and I couldn't cry louder and I had to help him through it. It's all a haze. I broke my sister's nose, gave her a black eye, and bruised her ribs. She was in the hospital for a few days. Update. A lot of people messaged me to ask about context from my last post. 1. This all happened right before COVID hit, the end of 2019, and everything was just settled this last month. 2. The incident happened in our kitchen. The front door leads down a hall directly to our open kitchen, and to the right is our living room that leads to the bedrooms. 3. We have cameras in every room but the bathrooms and bedrooms because we have a Great Dane named Butler. He's black and has a white oval patch from his chest to his tummy. He looks like a butler, who likes to get into everything, so we set up cameras to keep an eye on him while we're out. The cameras don't have sound recording. 4. My sister didn't her asterisk ape Mark, but she did try to coerce him into sexual activities. 5. My sister didn't know I was out when she came over. I don't have the recording anymore. It was too painful to keep, let alone watch. Also, my memory of the whole thing is hazy, but the tape showed Mark answering the door. Again, our cameras don't have sound recording. But Mark said that when he answered the door, she told him that she was there to get my camera and sweatshirt. He said okay, and let her in. He was watching the television, so he went back to his show while she walked into our room. She called out to him for help, and the cameras showed Mark getting up to help her. I don't remember how long they were in there, but the tape showed Mark rush out of the room while holding his hands out as if trying to stop an attacker. My sister then emerged half naked while holding onto her shirt. Mark backed up into the kitchen, still holding his hand out. She advanced towards him. Mark said he was telling her to put her shirt on and to leave, but she kept saying something along the lines of, "Hey, it's okay. I just need some help, that's all. And you're a nice guy. Just help me out a little." I think by that point he was declining into a panic attack as he started shaking. My sister took that opportunity to hug him. She said she did it to try and calm him down, but the tape showed her kind of grinding up on him. He pushed her away and fell to the ground crying and screaming. She then got down by him and was trying to wave her hands through his hair. Her other hand was also moving up towards his crotch. I remember from the tape seeing Mark flinch backwards and try to push her away. She always moved back closer to him. A few minutes later is when I got home and beat her to an inch of her life. I can't remember who called the police, but the police had showed up and my sister limped to the door while I was trying to help Mark calm down. I kind of remember them asking questions and trying to help Mark calm down. They thought he was going into shock, so they put a blanket over him and the paramedics came. My sister was quickly evaluated and then brought to the hospital. Mark and I stayed behind because by that point he had started to regain control again. I remember my parents showing up and asking what had happened. I told them everything. My mom stayed with Mark and I while my dad drove to the hospital to see my sister. Mark and I pressed charges on my sister, emotional trauma and sexual battery, Class A1 felony where I'm from. My sister tried to sue me, a misdemeanor charge, but it fell through. With the evidence we had, my sister was sentenced to 60 days of incarceration with a bond of $5,000. No one paid. She also has to serve 200 hours of community service, and her name was added to AS*X offender registry. She can appeal to the courts to have it removed after 10 years. She was also placed under a restraining order. On top of that, my sister owes us $25,000. I got a small slap on the wrist and have to do 50 hours of community service. Nothing too bad. My sister was cut off from the entire family and still is. Mark regressed tremendously, to the point that he couldn't sleep in the same bed as me for months. He was required to go into even more extensive therapy. He's come a bit of ways, but nowhere like he was before it happened. It will take a long time for him to heal. I consider myself bisexual, but I lean more towards men, while Mark is %100 gay. He finds the female body disturbing, to the point that we have had to skip over full female nudity scenes in movies. My sister knew of this. When I asked her why she would do this, she said that she thought she could change his mind. I'm not proud of what I did, but I'm also not sorry. On to story number 2. My boss tried to mess with my money, so I sicked the IRS on him and put him out business. First, I need to explain something. I seem like a very nice, laid-back, easygoing person, so most people make the mistake of thinking I'm a spineless wimp they can take advantage of. Operative word there is seem. In point of fact, I have a vicious, vindictive temper. I'm just emotionally lazy. I don't like wasting time and energy on confrontation that can more profitably be spent elsewhere. However, if you mess with my family or my money, very bad things will happen to you. As my mom liked to say, Ms. Nice Fancy has left the building, and you don't want to meet the other fancy. Example follows. This happened about 20 years ago. I started working as a C80 drafter for a small drafting and design firm, practically fresh out of college. I made a good salary, not great but comfortable. Very soon, I found myself the drafter, receptionist, office manager, file clerk, and even janitor when I needed to pick up a little extra money. My boss was almost never in the office, because I was there to handle everything. After a year of being general factotum, on Friday, April 13th, my boss comes to me and tells me he doesn't have my income tax paperwork ready but has a reasonable excuse, and he asks me to file an extension. I told him, this is kinda last minute, don't you think? But okay, I'll do it, and I did. Every couple of weeks afterward, I'd ask him about my tax paperwork, and he'd tell me no, not yet, and umpteen excuses why not. Finally, he told me his lawyer had them and was finishing preparing them, and would be ready any day. Really? I did wonder why his lawyer was working on them instead of his accountant, but I didn't say anything. My tax extension would be up on Sunday, July 15th, so I had to turn my taxes in by Saturday, July 14th. On Friday, July 13th, about 5 p.m., I was sitting in my office chatting with my mom, who was there to give me a ride home. My boss came into my office and had the gall to ask me to file another tax extension, and gave me some totally bogus excuse. You see, what he didn't know was, I had found all my tax paperwork on his computer a few weeks before, just needed to be printed out and signed off. So I knew then he'd been lying his $dollar off this whole time. I remember staring at him for a few moments, absolutely dumbfounded, then smiling and saying, okay. My mom told me afterward, when she saw me smile at him like that, she thought, OSHT, Fancy's gonna kill this guy, and I don't know if I can stop her. I'm sure he wishes that's all I had done to him. First thing Monday morning, I walked straight up to my boss and dropped my resignation on his desk. He's like, WDH, and tried to argue. Me, I don't argue. I just told him, I'm leaving, do you want me to work my notice? He said, hell no, get your stuff and get out, which was another huge mistake, in a long line of them, because I left and went straight to the IRS office, where I gave up all the goods on this guy. He apparently never actually paid any of my taxes or his, though he did take it out of my pay and I had proof. It so happens, before he was a C80 drafter/designer, he was a CPA who left that field under a cloud. The IRS was not happy to hear his name again. Everybody knows, you do not mess with the IRS. Not content with that, I then contacted all of his business associates and told them what he had done, that he was being investigated by the IRS, and if they didn't want to be too, they might want to steer clear. I didn't tell his wife, whom I was on very good terms with, but only because I wanted him to have that pleasure. Just picture that conversation. OMG, why did she leave? She did everything. Well, I'm very sure she heard ALLL about it from his associates. I will give him this. He was stubborn. He managed to hang on to his business for about a year of living hell before going under. But I smirked every time I went by his empty office. Edit. To clarify, I never printed the tax paperwork from his computer. It honestly never occurred to me to do so. I used my own records of what I was paid and what tax was taken out of my salary to go to the IRS with. Since it was all in his handwriting, they accepted it. I was really just trying to give this guy the chance to do the right thing right up to the end, or hang himself, whichever. Subscribe and like for more videos.